Got here an SWR 750X with the MC Escher domed logo. Amps like this with all the reflections are why I wear pants when making these videos. That and plus hot solder. The repair ticket just says, can it be repaired for under $200? And I don't know. This knob's not on at the right angle. Doesn't line up with it, with the dials. Let's see if the others are similarly off, or if it's just the effects blend. Seems to just be the effects blend that's crazy. So we'll come back to that. For right now, I'm going to set it all the way to dry, which means it's over here in the wet range because the knob needs to be removed and put back on correctly. That's a different issue. Turn the limiter off, the master way down. So no problem description. I don't know what's wrong with it. And that means at some point I'll probably have to call the owner and ask, and that adds to the time, which can add to the expense. But I don't want to call the owner and say, hey, what's wrong with the amp, if I open it up and there's a whole bunch of burned stuff inside where it's glaringly obvious, because then it looks like I don't know what I'm doing. Let's take a look inside and see what we see. By the way, I had to physically torque all the screws holding the case on by hand. There's some kind of thread locker used in there, and it was really tough. So hard that I didn't want to use my power tool for it. That's how things get stripped. So I don't think anyone's ever been inside this amp. I think it's probably factory thread locker. So let's see what we see. Okay. So it's got one preamp tube. Whole lot of op amps in here. One chip that they've dremeled off whatever the identifier was, because everyone wants to copy a 20-year-old design. I'm feeling the caps. This one feels like it might have a dome to it that's not the plastic. So does this. I'm going to come back and look at those more closely. Got these big power transistors, very common to SWRs for this era. Bunch of ribbon cables. I don't smell anything off. Got a big chassis mounted bridge down there. Let me do a little more poking around and see if I have anything to report back, and I want to take a closer look at these two caps here. I feel like there's a little bit of a doming to it, just slightly. And it's not the little pressure disc, it's not the little plastic disc up top, just coming up. Feels like it might be a cap. Alright, let's do something I like to do on these solid state amps. I don't have the schematic pulled up or anything like that. The first thing I do is I just power it on. And there's no huge current surge, I can tell, because I've got my limiter bulb on. And the first thing I do next is I make sure there's no DC present on the output jacks before I hook up any of my speakers to it. You get 70 volts DC on a speaker output because of a fault in the solid state output section of these things. You can kill a speaker really fast. So DC on the speakers. I guess I could maybe do this so you can see it. No DC on the left, or at least one. No DC on the output on two, so that's good. Means the most calamitous problems don't exist. And I've already confirmed that the speakers are good and nothing smells funny in the amp. Alright, let me hook up my speaker and see what I hear. A minute ago, when I measured the DC output on the speakers, I forgot that this thing is a speaker mute switch. So I flipped the mute switch off and remeasured, and it was 41 millivolts per side, which is still not ideal, but is nothing dangerous. And there's a slight hum audible through the speaker now. I've got a bass hooked up. Let me go to the effects return. Still hear the hum. Not getting any sound. Let's see if there's some mute thing. Let's effects in, effects return, tuner out, overdrive foot switch, preamp out, subwave foot switch. This would be the way to come back into the amp. Let me see if there's anything on the front panel that I'm missing that would kill sound. Okay, I remembered, sorry, haven't done an SWR in a long time, and I haven't done this model before. I forgot that the effects was parallel. So it's not a series connection. So that's good. It means I can plug into the effects return and have a sound. It's not a very loud sound, and it's a bit of a dark sound because the impedance is wrong for going in with a bass. That's very good news for us because it means that whatever's causing that awful noise is not part of the power section. It's the preamp section. Could be the preamp tube, but it could be all kinds of manners of things. So we're not out of the woods yet. But remember, the question was not, can this amp be fixed? The question was, can this amp be fixed for under $200? I don't know. So I've pulled the preamp tube now, power it back on, and I think I'm going to hear that buzz as soon as I go from 100% wet to dry. Yeah. So it's not just a preamp tube. I thought that'd be too easy. The tube that was in there is just unlabeled, generic. Put that to the side since it's of no importance to us right now. I'm trying to think about this whole thing. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Alright, so we've got this awful hum. It's present in the master. And the preamp gain affects it. I can make it a lot louder as I turn it up, but even with it off, it's present. So whatever is wrong is affecting everything in the entire preamp. I'll turn it off for a moment. And again, can I fix it? Yes. Can I fix this for under $200? I highly, highly doubt it just because of the way it's built and how much labor it would be to take apart. Every one of these capacitors all the electrolytics, those are all potential suspects and causes of this. They are all old enough that they all pretty much need to be replaced. I'm pretty sure that this cap and this cap have some slight doming. Doesn't feel like it's just in the plastic disc. So these are the two primary culprits. And I don't know what they're used for in the supply, in this circuit, but at 6,800 microfarad, 35 volts, that's pretty typical low voltage supply cap you'd find on, say, the rail supply for all these op amps. In fact, let me turn the amp back on and turn that master down so we don't hear it and see what those rails are sitting at. That might give me at least a hint. Let's see, find a good chassis ground point. And let's see, pin 4, negative 15.25, pin 8, 15.02. So neither rail is being pulled down by a major fail. So there's no real clue there. I bet if I were to scope this, I would probably see a bunch of noise riding on one or both rails though. But again, hooking this up to the scope adds to the time, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a declined repair if $200 was the cutoff point. These bridges like this right here, diode bridges, can nuke adjacent caps, even though they may physically look okay. There's just a lot of stuff that can go wrong in these. And I imagine this is probably closer to a $400 repair. That's even if I can get the schematic. Because honestly, when you have a big solid state thing like this with this much power, all kinds of little things can go wrong. It could be on this board and this board and this board over here. It's a very professional level piece of gear, or would be about 1995. I guess if you're Doug Wimbish in Living Color, this would have been the thing to have. But it requires a lot of maintenance. It's a big cost commitment to an amp like this, and I'm not sure that it's in many people's budgets these days. We'll see what the owner says.